Aloha, everybody. This is Indar Lang, and I'm your Hawaii money guy. And today we have a cool episode. We have my buddy here, Jeffrey Holst. I've known Jeffrey now for a little while now. We're in a common mastermind where we just got to learn and meet each other and kind of grow together. And super excited to have him here. And so we're going to share a little bit about Jeffrey, and it's no bad days. I love it. Just before we get started, I'd love it if you guys could subscribe below, and that way we can reach more people and just help people make their money work for them in any different way we can. Thank you guys, and let's get started in today's content. No Bad Days is amazing, and I actually was driving somewhere the other day, and I seen your video, and it just helped me actually at that moment of the day because I was stressed as hell.
So you're watching my video while driving? I don't actually recommend that.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. But Jeffrey here has an amazing book that's coming up. He's done multifamily. He's done a bunch of real estate endeavors, and we can dive on in and talk about his book. I really want to dive into talk about No Bad Days, as I'm sure he talks about it all the time. But let's talk about real estate and some of all that fun stuff. Jeffrey, so you grew up in Tennessee? You're living there?
Actually, I grew up in Michigan. So I live in Tennessee some of the time now. I told you, when we were talking a few weeks ago that I bounce back and forth a lot between Chattanooga and Puerto Rico. And I do that by choice because I love both places, and my business is mostly in Tennessee. So I have to come here a bit, and Puerto Rico is just amazing. So how
long you been doing real estate in the multifamily world and everything? Or what did you do before, I guess?
Well, I was a bankruptcy attorney in 2008, 9, and 10. So like the best possible time to be a bankruptcy attorney. So I mean, it was really busy, and I even had like a television commercial. So I was like the Better Call Saul of my neighborhood or something.
That's awesome.
But so I did that, and then I got into real estate in 2011, buying super cheap single family homes, and I built from there. In 2017, I started doing multifamily with like a smaller multifamily, like a 12 unit building. Then we did a 19, then a 32, and we just kind of went from there.
How many units do you have now? You have
it's just under 400. I don't keep a really close number on it because the thing about unit count that's weird is like sometimes you own like 30% of a building, sometimes you own like 70%, like it's just all these weird numbers. So I just I care more about how much money I make than how many units I have, but it's around 400.
Yeah. Well, when you do GP stuff, I mean, technically you own it.
Sure. Yeah. And we do some, we do GP stuff, but we still focus on much smaller deals than what most people are doing in the syndication world. Our biggest building is 42 units. So that's
how much those go for? A couple million or 2 to 5 million, something like
that. Yeah. Actually, this is sort of my sweet spot. Like I like properties that cost at least $1.3 million, because then it has $1 million loan balance, right? Like if you put 20% down, it's $1 million loan balance. It scares away the mom and pop type people. But if you get over about a $4 or $5 million loan balance, you start getting all the big institutional investors and big syndicators. So if I buy stuff that's like between that 1.5 to like $3.5, $4 million range, I just don't really get a lot of competition. So,
and those are. I like those properties myself. They're a lot easier to manage. You're more quaint. You don't have
and you're more likely to find something that's mismanaged, which means there's a lot of upside, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of people out there. They bought a building 15 years ago. They own one 20 unit building, and they're just like it's paid off. They don't really care. And then all of a sudden you go in and like rents are 40% below market, and you really don't have to do much to capture that upside. And those are amazing.
Just send out a letter. Rents are going to be raised. That's
I mean, usually there's a little bit of deferred maintenance when you have a property like that. So you have a little bit, but these are properties that we've been able to the last couple of years, buy them in 18 months or less, refinance them, and take all of our money back and still own the property.
Yeah, it's burying it all out. That's the amazing part of it.
It's multifamily burying.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I love that whole avenue. What markets are you guys in? Are you in Tennessee and a few other?
Yeah, so Chattanooga and anything within like 50 miles of here is kind of my thing. But I also do the east side of Michigan, north of Detroit. So like just 20, 30 miles north of Detroit, outside of the city limits. It's really just like one county there that I focus on. And that's just a function of I'm from Michigan originally. And my whole strategy in life is buy in places I know that market because I live there.
Oh, you
I
grew up
know
in
the
Michigan.
area.
Yeah.
And then and I didn't actually grow up in that exact spot in Michigan, but I have a partner that lives there. And so, I was very familiar with the market. And then when I moved down here, I started buying down here.
So just Michigan and Tennessee is your.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some other markets still. Like, I mean, looking seriously at Puerto Rico. It's one of the reasons I spend so much time there, because I really think like the secret to picking a market is you just got to get really good at the market before you start buying there.
Yeah.
And Puerto Rico has a ton of upside. It feels like 2013, 14 there. Like it's like,
really?
Everything's just starting to take off.
What is the buying process down there? Is it similar? You can get a loan and.
Yeah, the loans are a little bit harder to get, but the cap rates are way higher. So, you can justify paying cash for some stuff and make it work. But you can finance. Yeah, I mean, it's still.
Well, could you pay cash and refinance it out too?
Yeah, that's the real strategy. It just takes a long time to finance. The banks are much slower there.
And it's higher rates. Have you looked at rates and all that?
Yeah, rates are about 1% higher. So they're not, in today's market, that's a lot, but I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? So you're paying 7.5 instead of 6.5 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, at least they do financing. A lot of those countries, some of them are crazy,
so
15, 20.
Yeah, Puerto Rico's like a hybrid, right? Like they're kind of their own country, but they're kind of part of the U.S.
Yeah.
Everyone who lives there is a U.S. citizen. Some federal law applies, some doesn't. It's actually a complicated jurisdiction, but as a result, it's super stable, right? It's U.S. dollar based because they use the U.S. dollar, and you have an influx now because of the tax incentives, which I don't apply for because as a multifamily investor, I don't need to be a Puerto Rican resident.
Because you got the cost segs and all that.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of bonus depreciation and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really
you
worried
never tried
about
to get you never did try to get the Puerto Rican residency 6 months in a day or whatever.
No, in fact, I try to stay under 6 months there so I don't have to pay tax in Puerto Rico, because the tax in Puerto Rico is like 4% on export services. And I pay essentially 0% federal tax now. So I'm like 4%. That's more than zero. I'll just stay in the US.
Yeah. So yeah, you do a cost seg, which is best tax savings I think there is.
It's unreal. I mean, they're starting to phase it out now, right? So the depreciation's getting a little tougher, but
80%.
Yeah, but 80% bonus depreciation is still incredible.
Well, it doesn't mean you don't lose the other 20%. It just means
it just gets spread out over a longer period.
Yeah, so it's not like we're losing it. It's just less now, which is fine. I love that area actually you're investing in. I love Tennessee, and actually I've heard really good things about Detroit too, but I've been loving wanting to be into Tennessee and to get some deals down there, and hearing a lot of good things about that market. My buddy has a bunch down there too.
It's a great market, actually. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's a really good market. Chattanooga is good. I mean, it's a little hard to compete in Chattanooga with the deal size that we buy, just because there's a couple of other people already doing it, and like we're here. And there just isn't that much transaction volume. But if you get up to like Nashville or the surrounding areas of Nashville, I wouldn't get in Memphis necessarily unless you really dig deep into that market, because there's some areas that are good, some are really bad. Memphis is like Detroit. There's tons of opportunity, but it's competition. There's competition, but there's also some areas you don't want to be. Like in Detroit, if you don't have good market knowledge, and this is why we don't buy in the city at all anymore, because there are some blocks that are good and the next block over is a disaster. And it's hard to predict the future in those situations, because, it could be the disaster block is going to be risen, pulled up by the better block next door, but it could go the other way too. So I don't like things that aren't clear. I like to, know what's going on. I'd rather make a smaller return, but have a predictable return.
That's great. Well, we got to roll back here. We never talked about how we met and how we got to know each other from the mastermind and the social media group that we're in. It's our little circle with Brandon, and we get to meet these amazing people. I feel like
it's
every
unreal,
person,
actually,
every person I meet in that tight circle, like we just get close. Like it's just we have this kind of commonalities, like. A normal person, like I feel like it would take years and years to develop a friendship, but I think in that circle, it's like we're just tight.
Well, it's so
right?
intimate, right? Because it's
Yeah.
such a small group, and then we're all trying to do the same things,
Yeah.
from different angles and whatever, but we
Mhm.
have this common goal, and we're just sort of like working together. And like, this is true of all the good masterminds, though, right? If you have a
Yeah.
small mastermind group, it doesn't matter if it's just 3 or 4 people getting together for coffee once a week, or it's something more formal like this one Brandon put together. But I mean, in these kind of small group settings, the collective of the group
Mhm.
is just so much better than the individual.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, we're all trying to grow together. We're all trying to help each other, which just lets our guards down because we'll share our weaknesses or struggles, and that lets you be vulnerable, or what's working for you, or what to try, or what you're working on. I feel like
Yeah,
that group.
and I've gotten so many great ideas already from that. And we're only
Yeah,
a few months in, and
yeah,
like we've got like so much more time to go. And I'm excited to come hang out with you. I hope I get to see you here in a
yeah,
month or
yeah,
so.
yeah.
So that'll be fun.
When we fly over, I don't get to use a jet. I'm kind of bummed.
Yeah, right, right.
I want to fly up actually to California just to jump on the private jet to be able to
Yeah,
fly
right. Why
there.
not just fly over there and get
That's
on the
part of
jet
the
and come back?
that's part of the experience.
I know. I'm excited about that. I've never been on a private jet, so I'm excited about that
Just for
part
the
too.
content alone, right? I think I should ask.
Well, I think actually you could do it. I mean, but like, whatever. That seems like we're a little off topic for podcast land here, so I don't think
It's
the
a
listeners care about it too much. So,
flying on
but I
a
think
private jet. That's a big problem, right?
I know our life is so hard. You live in Maui. I think you're going to be okay.
Well, I live in Honolulu. I live in a different
Oh,
island.
you're in
Yeah, yeah,
Honolulu.
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
I didn't realize that. I knew you were in
Yeah.
Hawaii somewhere, but for some reason I thought you were in Maui.
No, I live on I'm from Big Island, but I live in Oahu now. But I go over
Okay.
the islands a lot. But let's dive in. You have a passion for climbing great giant mountains. Tell me, I didn't know that.
Well, I don't know if I have a passion for it. I have a passion for doing interesting things.
Yeah.
So I never really climbed a big mountain. So I went, what's the biggest mountain that a reasonably unfit person can climb? And I say reasonably unfit because like I'm like not that unfit, but I'm also
do
not like
Everest. Yeah, you don't want to.
superstar. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
And
want to be up.
so I wanted something that was like, it's approachable, but also would be challenging. And so I picked Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa. Did that in 2020. In February of 2020, got back right before COVID started and shut down the world,
Oh, geez.
And and so that was a really great experience, and I don't regret it. But man, it was hard. It was really hard.
Really? How long did it take
19,
you?
yeah, 8 days. 8 days.
Yeah.
19,000 feet. You go from a tropical rainforest all the way to a temperate like alpine zone in 7 days, and then one day down. The main reason it takes so long is just getting used to the mountain elevation, because the altitude sickness is bad. My brother went with. He ended up with acute mountain sickness. He had pulmonary edema, so his lungs were filling up with fluid. So he ended up having to leave the mountain early and ended in a hospital for 4 or 5 days. And
oh wow,
jeez, yeah, in Tanzania, right? Just hanging out in Tanzania in a hospital by yourself. I mean, it was terrifying, but it turned out fine. So it could have been worse.
Yeah, and then you kept going. You made it to the top.
I did, yeah, and mainly because my brother was like, well, why would you quit? Like what's the point? Like, you can't help me. You're not a doctor. So I'm going to go to the hospital. You're going up the mountain. I said, okay.
Yeah. That's cool. I would love to do something like that. I love the experience of those kind of ventures in life,
Yeah. It's also, it's kind of mastermind-ish too, though, in a way, because like, the people that I climbed with are now really great friends of mine. My brother, of course, I was already tight with, but there was a group of 5 of us, and I didn't know the other guys very well. And now if I see them, we've got this shared experience.
Yeah.
And even just the other day, someone I met on the mountain reached out to me about doing another climb. So maybe I am going to be that guy that climbs mountains. I think we're looking at doing Everest Base Camp in the fall now.
Cool.
So yeah, so
cool.
I may do that. I haven't decided yet. I told her I would think about it for a few days because it's a big commitment. Financially is one thing, but the time is the thing. That's a 21-day trek in Nepal.
And it's a
Yeah,
couple 20 grand or 10, 20
yeah,
grand.
it's actually really cheap. I mean, the actual trek is only like $2,500. But then there's the cost of getting to Nepal, obviously, and then the
Sure.
taking the basically a month off by the time you do a 21-day trek and you
That's
spend any time at all traveling, right?
yeah.
Um,
Syria.
so
You're
the
a
real
month.
cost is the time. And I think I can justify the time, but then there's also the before Kilimanjaro, I trained for a year, and this is like, not a year from now. And I'm like, it's just as hard. It's 18,500 feet, 3 peaks over 18,400 feet, actually. So,
Oh, geez, just to get the base camp. Wow.
yeah, yeah. Well, they do this thing called the 3 passes. There's actually a different way you can go where you don't go quite as high, but yeah, base camp is pretty high elevation as well. So,
Jeez. I was watching some crazy videos of somebody when that mountain erupted up there, and a lot of people died and stuff. And
well, I'm going to try not to die.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of one of my habits, is trying to stay alive.
I was talking to a pilot last night, and I was talking about, are you concerned about the 300 plus passengers, in the back? He's like, no, my first concern is myself. If I live, that means everyone else is going to live.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, and listen, obviously, if given a choice, I would try to save someone else's life, but like, I also don't want to die. Right? So
I don't think no one wants to die. But so you were attorney for a while. Do you still practice being an attorney? Does that help?
I don't know. I quit practicing law in 2010. So what happened is I got in 2008, I got diagnosed with leukemia. And I was really honestly, this is how I know I don't want to die, because I was told I had like weeks, maybe months to live, and I was like, whoa, that's not good. Got to figure this one out. And it's highly motivating when you're told something like that.
Yeah. How'd you figure it out? What was this?
So I actually was in Peru, went to Machu Picchu, and I came back with a respiratory ailment. They gave me antibiotics. I wasn't getting better. And so they did some blood work, and they found the leukemia as a side effect of doing the blood work. Like, I didn't have any symptoms really from that.
Yeah.
But my white blood cell count was extremely elevated. And so for a period of like 3 or 4 days, until they figured out what kind of leukemia I had, like, we all assumed that I had like a few weeks to live, because my white blood cell count was like 250,000 and it's supposed to be like 4,000, right? And I don't know anything about leukemia other than I had a cousin who had died of leukemia a few years earlier, and her white blood cell count when she died was around 100,000. So I was like more than double as high as her, and I was like, this can't be good, right? We're doing estate planning at this point. But I was fortunate, because the type of leukemia I had, there was a new treatment protocol that had just recently come out. I got on that. It took care of the problem for the most part. It's actually controlled. It's not gone. So I take a 1-a-day chemotherapy pill, have for 15 years now. Oh. And anyway, the thing about it is, though, I was off work for a long period of time, and I had the television commercials and the phone book ads. I mean, it's hard to imagine phone book ads anymore, but I had these expensive phone book ads. And I was burning through about $5,000 or $6,000 a week, and I wasn't making any money because I didn't have any attorneys. Yeah. And it drove me into personal bankruptcy. And I just went, you know what? I need to figure out something different, some way to support my wife if something happens to me, because I didn't know if I was going to live. So after the bankruptcy, I took a job with Better Insurance, and I started investing everything I could in real estate.
Well, Better Insurance, what was that company? That was
it was a small company, but working for yourself as an attorney, your health insurance isn't awesome. And so when I went to work for this company that was only like 40 or 50 employees, but they had reasonably good Blue Cross insurance, and I was able to cover my expensive chemotherapy treatments and things like that, and I made reasonably good money. Fortunately, I have an MBA and a law degree, so I was able to get a good job, a good salary. And I just started taking the money I was making post bankruptcy and just piling it into real estate. Yeah. And it wasn't, I mean, I didn't put that much into real estate, maybe $30,000-$40,000, but in 2010, you could buy a lot of real estate for $30,000 or $40,000.
Yeah,
turns
back
out,
then,
especially in Detroit.
You look really smart.
When houses were like $1,000.
Yeah, 13 years later, you look really smart at whatever you bought, no matter what.
Yeah, really good timing. I mean, you could have bought anything then, and you're golden now. And then flash forward 5 or 6 years. The company I was working for was getting sold to a bigger company. They offered me a job in their legal department, and I was like, nope. not doing that. I'm going to just live off the real estate. And I never went back to work. And that's actually when I started buying multifamily. So I was like, well, I don't really have quite enough to survive on indefinitely here. So I need to figure out a way to ramp it up. And so I started buying bigger deals.
And syndicating and doing it.
Yeah, I didn't even start syndicating for maybe another year or so, maybe 2 years after that. So
I've been wanting to do syndication models, but I haven't really stepped into that model still yet.
So people make it more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, you need to be careful. There's legal compliance issues and stuff like that, right? You want to get good legal advice. But I mean, at the simplest level, you're just pooling people's money together, right? You're raising some capital from multiple individuals and you're going to buy real estate and you get paid really well for it. You get to keep a piece of the deal. You might get some fees on top of that. So if you develop the expertise necessary to find good deals, that's valuable, and people are willing to.
How do you find most of your deals now? Are you on the hunt all the time? Are you brokers sending you?
Yeah,
stuff,
I mean, it's a lot of relationship stuff. So my partner has a property management company, so sometimes it's as simple as properties that he's managing. People are like, "Oh, I want to sell it," so you're first in line. Sometimes it's just the fact that we've already bought deals. Like the cool part about buying in a confined market like we do and buying in a certain deal size is that the brokers all know. Like if somebody says, I want to sell this 25 unit building in Chattanooga, they're going to call us. It doesn't matter what broker they go to, that broker is going to say, I know the people that buy these. Like I should talk to that person. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of deals just from like natural deal flow now, but it's taken a long time to get to that. It started with like really a big grind. And it's still a grind. Like you might, sometimes you're like, man, I can't find any deals. And then all of a sudden 3 deals show up.
Huh. Yeah, that's how it is. I know you'll get all of a sudden you got to close on 3. I know.
And then you're like, I can't buy all 3 and they all look great. Like, how do I do it? That's when we syndicate. Because, we prefer still to take the deals down in a smaller, tighter group, if at all possible. So like, when you syndicate, you might end up with, 10, 15%, 20%, if you're lucky, of the deal as a GP, because you're splitting your GP side a couple of different ways. If I buy a deal like a 15 unit building and it's just me and you buying it, then we have it 50-50. I'd much rather that deal.
Yeah. It's a lot better splits. Yeah.
You're not, but the difference, of course, is you're coming up with the money yourself in those scenarios. So there's a limit to how many of those you can do.
Yeah. That's true. And sometimes in the syndicated models, some of those syndicators are not doing it for the cash flow. They're looking for the flip model, long-term flips sometimes.
Yeah. And there is something to be said about that. In fact, Ben Leibovich told me once when I was talking to him, he said, you have to think about all real estate as a flip. Doesn't matter. It might be a 10-year flip, but it's still a flip. Like, because the only way you really know what your return is when you sell.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's true.
Because if you're cash flowing, theoretically, hypothetical, you buy XYZ property and it makes, you pay $1 million and it makes $100,000 a year in cash flow. So it's amazing. It's a 10% cash on cash return, right? You pay whatever, right? That sounds cool. But if you end up selling it 5 years from now for $500,000, then you just got your $1 million over 5 years. That was not a good investment, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you buy $1 million property and it cash flows $0 and 5 years from now you sell it for $5 million, it was a pretty good investment. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So you have to consider both variables because cash flow matters because that's part of your internal rate of return, but also the exit matters. Yeah. So you really do have to look at them all as a flip. It doesn't matter if you're holding it for 6 weeks or 6 years.
Yeah. No, I analyze deals differently just because based on that appreciation model, am I going to be all right? Just a less cash flow. And I know the appreciation is going to kick butt on this asset in Hawaii, we have huge appreciations. So.
And that's what, we do that on our multifamily because we're doing value add. A lot of times they don't cash flow at all when we buy them, but we know we can raise rents 40%, which is going to increase the NOI dramatically. Sure. We're probably going to fix the building up. And if we bought like a C+ building in a B area and we fix it up a little bit, all of a sudden it's a B area, B building. And now we've got a better building in a better area with higher rents and it's worth significantly more. And that's what we try to do.
Yeah. And then you refinance and take all your money out, take your investors' money out and do it again.
And just keep repeating.
Yep. Yeah. I love that process more now in multifamily than in the single family. I've done BRRRRs in both ways now, and I love the multifamily burr better. Obviously,
Well, it's easier to predict the value, right? And you have more control over the value. The single family burrs, they can work, but you have to buy at a discount and fix them up.
yeah,
Multifamily burrs, if you can raise the net operating income, you raise the value every time.
yeah. And I mean, I think cap rates are kind of over rated. Honestly, I mean, a cap rate's just a kind of a quick average of the area, but some people care about cap rates, I think, sometimes too much. Personally, I don't know.
So and people confuse them too, right? So like, people go, okay, I'm getting this cap rate. Well, the thing is, like, maybe, right? But until you actually buy it and know what your NOI actually is, you're not going to know what the real cap rate is. Yeah. But there's also this, like, there's a going in cap rate, there's a going out cap rate, there's a market cap rate, there's a project cap rate. It's not like there's one thing, right? Like, it's not like, oh, we're in a 5 cap market. Okay, cool. But if I'm buying something at a 3 cap, but I'm going to raise the NOI so that my effective cap rate is a 7 cap, and I'm going to sell it at a 5 cap, that matters, right?
Yeah.
Because then I'm getting a bunch of upside on the back.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if I'm buying at a 5 cap and I can't raise the NOI and I'm going to sell at a 4.5 cap, that's good too, because that's appreciation.
Yeah. You just got appreciation. That's about all you got.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's complicated, but it's exciting and fun, and I like it. So that's all that really matters.
Yeah. No, multifamily is a lot more interesting. I think it's becoming a lot more popular too in the last year or so, with people and so forth. A lot of my friends and people I've seen been moving more into multi. As myself, I've been trying to go more into multi.
It feels that way, right? But I also wonder sometimes if there's self-selection bias, right? Because we hang out with people that are interested in multifamily, and all of a sudden seems like everyone's doing multifamily, but it's because all of our friends happen to hang out with people that do multifamily.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Like, I don't know if the average real estate investor is buying apartment buildings. I don't think they are. Like, I think the average real estate investor is buying like single family houses, but definitely you see it more online than you used to. And it might just be we're getting better at sharing the content too.
Yeah, or the people that we follow, or it just happens to the algorithm of Instagram shares their multifamily.
There's so many variables, because we all live in these bubbles, and like, I feel like I see your stuff all the time. I don't know how much you post, but I feel like I see your stuff all the time.
Thank you.
But I never saw your stuff 2 months ago. Like, I don't think you're posting that much more now than you were 2 months ago.
Well, I actually kind of am. I'm posting daily now. Right, try to.
Well, I didn't even know who you were 4 months ago. So.
Yeah, until we met in the group. Yeah, and I see your stuff too all the day. Well, talking about your stuff, we didn't even talk about the fun stuff. No bad days. We didn't even get to talk about. And so I love the no bad days things, and I actually honestly think of you sometimes when I like this business. I get stressed big time. I'm buying a $5.6 million shopping center right now. The stress levels can get up there when you have to deal with lenders,
because you're putting in millions of your own dollars or partner capital, and you're like, what if I miss something? Like, what if like one of these units goes vacant or dark? It's just really it's intimidating and scary. And
I'm just buying it right now and dealing with the lender. My one lender basically pulled out on me. I had to swap to a new lender.
And rates keep changing constantly right now.
And luckily we actually got a better price, but
nice.
But it's stressful, man. It's just stressful buying a house in general. And then when you're doing this all the time, like that level of stress. So
we're in the middle of buying a 56 unit building. It's going to be our biggest apartment building. And it's like the same exact thing. It's like, and there's all these variables, and you find out stuff, and then you're like, whoa, should I change this? And it doesn't really matter if you're buying a single family house or you're buying a shopping center or an office building. I mean, the building I'm in now is an office building we own, but like every deal I do, something comes up that stresses me out a little bit.
Yeah.
And,
it's always,
and that's where that is actually where the no bad days thing can be really useful. And I love hearing that, that you think about me sometimes in this, because that's the reason I do it. Because my thing is, like, good and bad stuff is going to happen to you no matter what. And like, the trick is to just focus on the positive and minimize the negative. So like, for example, I decided this when I was 17. This is a depreciation schedule away, right? 27 and a half years ago, I decided I'm going to give up bad days. Haven't had a single bad day in 27 and a half years. But I was diagnosed with leukemia and thought I was going to die for most people, that would be a bad day.
Yeah.
But I was like, I got diagnosed at 10 o'clock at night. Most of the day was pretty good. It's the perspective. And you could say like, well, that's really not a fair way to look at it. But the thing is, it kind of is, right? Because somewhere in the world right now, someone's having the worst day of their life. Somewhere else in the world, someone's having the best day of their life. So today, it's not good or bad. It's just how those individuals perceive it that determines how they're receiving that day. And so if I can, even if it's self-delusion, trick myself into believing today's a good day, then today is a good day for me. And so when bad stuff happens, I try to find the positive in it. Like what good stuff can come from that negative. And so like when I got leukemia, I thought, oh, look at all these people that are showing up at the hospital to see me. Like people love me and it felt good. And it gave me a clearer head to make the decisions I needed to make that kept me alive. And the next day, same thing. I found little things that made my day good. And then the next day, I found little things that made my day good. And the truth is, by stringing together all those good days for the 15 years since I was diagnosed with leukemia, I've ended up in a world that's so much better than I would have ever been. And where I get to hang out with you in Hawaii, right? Yeah. Where I get to do things like hang out with Brandon. I remember when I first heard of Brandon Turner, I thought like it would be cool to just like someday shake that guy's hand. And then like here we're in like San Diego, like doing shots and stuff.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, it's cool to have. So the no bad days. How do you deal with like when you really are kind of on the verge of having a bad day, or you have like a stressful time in your life? Buying a deal can be, it's not a stressful day, it's a stressful weeks or months.
Yeah. So the thing is, right, again, it's about perspective, right? So it's I'm not saying bad stuff's not going to happen to you, because it will. Good and bad stuff's going to keep happening to everyone. But if you can reframe it into how do I deal with whatever the garbage that I'm dealing with is, and embrace the positive, then you're going to feel better and you're going to have a clearer head and you're going to make better decisions, right? So for me, and there's science behind this, actually. Tony Robbins calls it the reticular activating system. It's really called the Bader-Meinhof effect, but the basic idea is your subconscious mind defaults to what's familiar, right? So like if you buy a Honda Civic, all of a sudden it seems like there's Honda Civics everywhere, right? Yeah. Even though they were always there, you didn't see them, but now you're familiar with it. So you see it, you recognize it. Yeah. So a big part of this is getting really good at seeing positive. The more positive you see, the easier it becomes to see positive. So like I got diagnosed with melanoma like 2 years ago. And my first thought was like, wow, that's terrible. Like a second cancer, that's going to be bad. And like a half a second later, I thought, this is going to be a great story on a podcast. And I was like, awesome. I got something cool to talk about later.
Yeah.
And like, it sounds crazy, but the thing is, it made that experience better for me. And I think, the magicians, they say abracadabra, abracadabra, that actually is from ancient Aramaic. Most people don't know that, but it's abra and cadabra. It's two separate words. And it literally means, as I speak, it is basically like I speak it into existence, so from like my perspective, I just say today's a good day so often. And, I carry around my coffee cup, says no bad days. Carry around my book, says no bad days. I tell everyone I never have bad days. So when bad stuff happens, what happens to me is I go, what am I learning from this experience? What growth am I getting? What could have been worse? What's good about the experience, right? And there's always some good in everything. Like when I got leukemia, that sucked, but it also caused me to get out of being a lawyer, right? And start investing in real estate. And now I can do things like take a month off and climb Kilimanjaro, right? or go back and forth to Puerto Rico, like 1 week here, 1 week there. Like most people can never live their life like that. And I get to do it because of the garbage that I had to deal with. And Hal Elrod, the guy who wrote Miracle Morning. Yeah,
he's great.
Yeah, amazing, right? He has this quote that I love, and he says, the moment you accept 100% responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. And I'm like, that's how the no bad days thing is. It's like, it wasn't my fault that I had leukemia, right? But it was my responsibility to deal with it, to play the cards as well as I possibly could that I was dealt. And so when stressful things happen, if you're like, okay, how do I make this awesome? Then it's going to be better. Now, I'm not saying you're never going to be stressed out, or you're never going to have a bad moment, or you're never going to get pissed off at somebody. I mean, all of those things are going to happen because we're living a human existence and we're exposed to all this stuff. But the more you do this, the better you get at it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it's all starts in your mindset. I think your mindset's kind of what you're,
it starts with mindset, it ends with mindset. It's all mindset.
Just by changing your thought process of the whole thing, it definitely can.
Yeah. And listen, we all know people that are always complaining, like nothing's really wrong in their life and they think it's terrible. Same thing works that way too. So just train yourself, like build that mental muscle up to be more positive, and you become more positive. And even if you don't believe it, like if you want to start right now, like you want to give up bad days today, this is what you do. You just say out loud, today's a good day, over and over again. And you just keep saying it until you believe it. It might, because it's the abracadabra, it's speaking it into existence, and how you perceive the day is the only thing that matters. So if you can convince yourself today's a good day, it is a good day. And so you just do that long enough. And I mean, it might take a week or two of saying that, 10, 50 times a day, whatever.
Today's going to be a good day.
Yeah. Today's going to be a freaking great day.
Yeah.
Like today is a good day.
Today's going to be an amazing day.
Another thing you can say is, I never have bad days. Like I don't have bad days. If you say that enough, it becomes true.
I don't have bad days.
I don't have bad days. And you can hashtag it, and you can put it on your book and your coffee cup, and remind yourself constantly. And eventually you become the no bad days guy, and I'm out of a job. And that's all right. I'll be happy for you.
You get all the credit for it.
No bad days, no bad shows.
No bad days. And I love it because I'm sitting here, honestly, and before this, I was in a meeting earlier, and I sat there and I talked for an hour in a meeting earlier, and then I jumped onto the podcast with you. So that last 2 hours, my mornings are normally my like busy phone calls, emails, like everyone's at my throat, wants my attention. And that stress is building as I was, sitting in the mornings normally, and now building more. And now to jump on the air with you and to know that no bad days, it's just the motto. It just makes you smile. I'm smiling here, and it makes you feel good that you'll get through it. You'll be fine.
It's no different than the good vibes thing you got behind you. It's like surround yourself with positive, like things that say no bad, t-shirts that say no bad days. People send them to me all the time now. Like I get like, random gifts that say no bad days, and I just fill my house up with this no bad days stuff. But this stuff works beyond no bad days, right? You can choose how you experience the world. And so you get to make these choices. Like, do I want to be a real estate investor? Do I want to live in Hawaii? Like, do I want to move to Puerto Rico? Do I want to invest in certain types of assets? Do I want to grow my business, or do I want to just keep it the same? All of those things, those decisions, if you make them purposefully, make your world better.
Yeah. It's so true. It's all the decision of how you want to see it, do it, and what you want to do. And even now I'm very focused with my time now, and I don't want to do negative activities or things or even just work that's going to bring me down, so I'm constantly focused on my time differently because I want to have that positive, good lifestyle. I want to have a good time with my family. I want to have good moments,
And that's another one of my core philosophies. We call that the last life ever philosophy. It's like recognizing that this is our last chance to live this life. Like we're not going to do it again. And there's a certain level of responsibility associated with that. Like if you, Indar, are called to do certain things, you feel compelled to do those things. It doesn't matter if it's climb mountains, start charities, help the poor, build houses, whatever it is that you're called to do. If you don't do those things never get done by you. And if you don't do them now, you can't do them later, because we only get one chance. And whatever we don't do today, we can never do today. Right. Like, and because time keeps moving. And so I feel like not only is it our responsibility to ourselves to like live the best possible version of our lives, but it's our responsibility to our family, to our community, and really even to the world. Like if you don't do those things that you're supposed to do, you're cheating the world out of the product that you would have created, whatever that is.
It's so true. Yeah. What you would have gave to the world if you don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I love about Brandon, right? Like we talk about the mastermind, like he's doing all these big things and he wants to be so charitable and do all and make the world a better place. I'm attracted to that. And that's why I'm attracted to the group. It's why why I do what I do, why I come on podcasts and talk about real estate is so I can tell people about living a better version of their life. It's not about real estate. Like I like real estate, but real estate's a tool that helped me live a better version of my own life. It's not the end. It's just the means.
It gives you freedom to do the fun things.
And time freedom is the most important thing we can do. I interviewed this guy, Tony Pinnells, doctor out of Australia, who said to me, the most important thing to learn in life is how to buy back your time as soon as possible. As soon as that should be your number one priority. How do I buy back my time? So I'm not trading my time for money. If you can buy back your time so you can do what you want. Now it's fine to earn money for your time, right? That's okay. But if you're making that choice out of I need the money to buy food, then you don't own your time, right? If you're doing it because like Brandon, you want to raise more money for charity, that's why you're working. That's awesome, right? Then you're making a choice. Brandon owns his time and he's choosing to go make money so that he can donate more money to charity, that he can enrich his family's life, that he can enrich his own life, but he doesn't need to do it, right? So like the first step in life, figure out how to buy back your time. And I thought, man, that is so smart. So smart.
It is smart.
And everyone can do it. That's the rich dad, Robert Kiyosaki philosophy, buy assets because they pay you forever.
You got me thinking more about the aspect of time. Time is what makes us ultimately happy. If we're spending the time, working at McDonald's and we're hating life, or we're spending the time growing business and taking ourselves out of business and then eventually spending our time, with the family, traveling, hiking mountains, like our time.
Yeah. Helping people, traveling, anything. The point is it
creates everything in our life. But
yeah. And, we control how we create the existence that we have, and the choices we make impact our future. The future version of Indar is 100% your responsibility right now. And this is another thing that I do for myself. Like when I go through trauma, you asked about like, how do you deal with hard things? Somebody does something terrible to you and you want to lash out at them and you want to scream and throw things, whatever, right? Like I take a second and I say, what action would future Jeff be proud of me doing right now? Like when I look back at this moment 5 years from now, am I going to be happy with how I responded? If you think of it from that perspective, you're always thinking about how do I make future Jeff better? Like your life gets really, really good, really fast. And you become a much better person.
If you focus on that. Yeah, there's that say if you get 1% better every day, and in a year, you're 365% better.
And that's not. It's actually more than that because of compounding, right?
It's compounded. Yeah, technically, yeah. I feel that it's in our society more so too nowadays, that people are more focused on bettering themselves, more self-help. When I was a kid, I used to love self-help books, but now I feel it's really popular now. Everyone loves self-help.
I think it's COVID actually. So I've had this philosophy for a while that was like, the people that inspire me the most are people that have gone through hardship. Like Hal Elrod's a perfect example of that. He's had all kinds of problems and he's done all these amazing things as a result. And like, in spite of his difficulties, he's gone and done these things. Right. And I think what happened with COVID is the whole world went through a challenging time. Forget about whether whether whose fault it is or whether you're pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine, but we all went through this collective experience of negativity and challenge. And some people are going to come out worse from it. Obviously, some people get leukemia and die, but in my case, getting leukemia made me a better person. Right. And I think some significant portion of the world is becoming better because we went through this experience, and we're hopefully at the tail end of it now, as we sit here in 2023. Who would have thought that back in the summer of 2020, we'd still be talking about this in 2023.
Still, going on. Yeah.
But I do think it matters. And I think it's woken a lot of people up to their potential. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of great things are going to come out of it. I think we'll look back at this point in time 10 years from now and say that was an amazing point in time when all this great stuff happened.
Yeah. I think we are. We're still growing. I mean, last 2 years, I know anyone in real estate had their best 2 years in real estate. Probably most everyone had their
Yeah.
best 2 years
We're
ever.
about to go through a challenging 2 years,
Yeah.
I
And
think,
now
in real
see if you
estate.
can
And
have the next
but we're
2
all
years.
ready for it. You know, that's the thing. Like 5 years ago, people weren't talking about this stuff. Now they
Yeah.
are. People are like, whoa, what happens if something unforeseen happens?
Yeah.
Like just being aware of the possibility of a black swan event, like a
Yeah.
global pandemic, changes how you choose to run your business.
Yeah. Yeah. It plans better. You know, you have, you have a better reserve for your rental properties, or you have a
Yeah.
war chest. I call it a war chest. I have a war chest on my
Yeah. And I think
properties.
like right now, if you're buying real estate, you better have long-term debt in place. You better have some cash flow, and you better have a cash reserve, your war chest.
Yeah.
If you don't have those things, don't buy. Don't ever spend your last dollar on real estate. It's a bad strategy.
Yeah, it's not an overnight get rich kind of thing. It's a long-term strategy of.
It's a short-term strategy, but it's longer than one day, right? Like
yeah.
Like it's a lot faster than putting 10% of your paycheck in a 401k for 50 years. Because like it might take you 5 or 7 or 10 years to get to where you want in real estate, way faster than 50, right? But at the same time, it's not overnight.
It's not an overnight like this.
Yeah, it's not get rich today. Look, it's not a lottery ticket. It's still a job. You still have to work at it. You still got to be strategic. You got to be thinking about how to mitigate risk.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about with a war chest, right? You're mitigating risk. You're protecting your downside.
You're planning out, and even the cash flow in general. Like I hear people, I'll get 1 or 2 or 3 rental properties, and I'm gonna live free the rest of my life. Like, it doesn't really work that easy.
You can't cash flow yourself to riches. You can cash flow yourself to some level of financial freedom, but riches come from equity. Like net worth is what you need, right, to be rich. It's not cash flow.
That's what's
People
more important.
miss that
to
all
me.
the time. Like if I buy a property that's worth $100,000 and I borrow $100,000 on it and it cash flows $10,000 a year, that's cool, right? But you know what I should do? Pay that sucker off so I have some equity.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Net worth is way more popular. I remember before when I didn't know much, I was coming up in the business, and I just wanted to make $1 million, and I didn't, I thought that was all great, but making $1 million is a lot different than having a net worth of
keeping $1 million is the trick, right?
Keeping them.
like make $1 million and spend $1 million. You're in the same place you were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the net worth is way more cool. That's
where the net worth is, right? That's forced savings, right? If you buy a building and it amortizes over 20 or 30 years and it pays off $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month, that's $20,000 added to your net worth every month. That's real equity that you can tap later in the future. That's wealth, long-term financial wealth.
And you can do that to buy more, do other things,
or
travel around the world for a year, and whatever you want to do in life. It's just giving you that freedom.
Yeah, that's where freedom comes from. Real wealth is cash flow is good, but real wealth is what you really need.
Yeah. But let's dive into. We have a question. So we have a question. This is this segment we do investor insight, and we have a question that somebody asked, and this is from Austin, and he says, "Do you have any future market predictions? What should house buyers keep in mind right now?" So I know it's been a topic for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this is always a tricky topic, but it's particularly tricky right now, right? So we have two counter indicators. One is inflation still very high. Inflation tends to drive prices up, but interest rates are also very high, which tends to drive inflation down. If the Federal Reserve performs a magic trick, they might drive inflation down without crashing the housing market. It's possible, but it seems unlikely, although it's increasingly more possible than it was. People aren't talking about that, but it seems like they're doing a pretty good job. Inflation is slowly tapering off. The market hasn't crashed yet. So maybe
The magic trick
maybe
work.
we might get that soft landing that they promised us. But if I were looking at buying a house right now, I would be looking at, do I want to live in this house for 10 years? Normally I say 5, right? Like, because here's the thing, you never want to buy a house. Now, if you're buying an investment, it's different. But if you're buying a house, if you can afford the payment and you're confident in your job status and your ability to make those payments, right? And you're buying the house and you're planning on moving in 2 years, you're better off renting every time, because transaction costs are going to eat it up. You're taking market risk that the property might go down in value, all that stuff. But those are generally short-term things, right? If you're going to live there 5 years, you're going to pay off a little bit instead of paying off none, right? Because the first couple of years you pay off essentially nothing on amortizing debt. And the longer you have it, the more you're paying off, right? And the more you pay off, the more real wealth you're building.
Yeah, more money in your pocket. Yeah.
So that's when you start getting, and people say, I don't want to throw away my money on rent because my rent's $3,000 a month and my house payment's $3,000 a month, right? Or whatever. If I pay $3,000 a month to my landlord, I don't get anything back. No, you get a place to live. That's what you get, right? But if you pay $3,000 a month to the bank and you sell your house 2 years from now for the same price, and you only paid off like $5 in the 2 years, and then you have transaction costs of 6% to sell it, you actually lost money, right? Like, you got a place to live, but now you have to pay money at close, right, to get out of the house. So if I'm buying a house now, what I'm looking at is, do I want to be there for at least 7 to 10 years? And am I comfortable with that place? Am I okay with the school district, with the location? If I have kids, is it going to change my life? How likely am I to stay in the same job? Can I work remotely? These kind of questions are what I'd be asking before buying a house right now, because predicting the next 2 years in the real estate market is really hard. And I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen. It probably will soften a little bit more. Probably we'll see some downturn in the market. I don't think we're looking at 2010 level downturns, but we could in some markets, especially markets that are high appreciation markets. They tend to get hit faster and harder. They come back faster and harder, right? So if you're buying in Hawaii, it's different than if you're buying in Detroit.
Yeah, big difference. I mean, we've seen that a lot in the last 6 months, but feel like we're kind of coming out of this whole spiral. Maybe
it feels like it, right? No one's talking about it, but it feels like we're like the drops are kind of like, the market's not that bad, the economy's still good, unemployment's still low, the GDP is still going up.
But there's so much people have these crystal balls and magic crystal balls and doing this and that, and I never worry about I try and guess, and I watch, and I want to be educated what's going to happen, but I always buy a deal as if it looks like a deal, smells like a deal, I'll buy a deal. And I just get more conservative right now. If you're buying
fundamentals,
if you're buying a deal now, just make sure it's better numbers.
If it's a deal, it's a deal, right? People make money in every cycle of the real estate market.
In every market,
in every second. People say, oh, it's so expensive in Southern California. Sure, but people are still making money in Southern California, right? It's so expensive in Hawaii. Sure, but people make money in Hawaii, right? And you know what? You can make a lot of money really fast in some markets. Because I have to buy, like in Detroit, I'd have to buy 100 houses and flip 100 houses to make the same as what you can make on one flip in Hawaii, right?
There's no bad market as I actually.
It's just what's the best way to react. It's no different than the Hal Elrod quote, right? Like, given the circumstance you're in, like, what's the best thing you can do in that circumstance?
Somebody's going to figure it out, and somebody's going to do that, market, that deal, whatever. So
market prices are set because that's the expected return that someone wants in that market, right? Like, that's how pricing is set.
But nice. So, deal of the week. Are you raising any money for any deals in particular? Do you have any products or the book?
The book is the big thing, right? So, not everyone's going to see the camera, but the book's coming out in April 25th. So it's called No Bad Days, How to Make Every Day Great. But the pre-order is actually available everywhere. So Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, doesn't matter. You can pre-order it anywhere. Amazon, of course, as well. I'm excited about sharing the book. The book is it's my life story told as a series of life lessons, things that I learned along the way. So, some of it we covered today, like, getting leukemia, but there's obviously a lot more in a book than we can cover in, 45 minutes on a podcast. and I really am happy with how it turned out, and I'm really excited to share it with people because I think it's really important. And that's, like I said, that's why I go on podcasts. It's about sharing my unique perspective because I think it can help people, and we know it's helped you. You've said as much. You think about it sometimes, and
just the
you haven't even read the book, but I
Yeah.
promise you, next time I see you, I'll give you a copy because I have some printed copies already.
I'll buy one. I'll buy one on Amazon.
You can buy one too, but I'll give you a signed one because we're friends.
Yeah. Well, actually, we'll see each other, I think, in for the mastermind in Maui. So
Yeah, absolutely. So when we go there, I'll make sure you get one.
you have to bring one for everybody. You have to
try. I mean, it's not that big of a group. I already planned on bringing everyone one, so don't feel too special. But now they all know they're getting one.
Oh, jeez. They have an extra suitcase of books.
Wow, I mean, it's like a couple. I mean, it's a dozen. I mean, it's not that many books, right?
A dozen. It is. That's a lot of books in a suitcase. It's a lot of weight.
Yeah, well, this is a small book, man. It's paperback. I can throw it in my backpack. I can fit about 50 in my backpack. I know because I bring them to Puerto Rico with me when I go.
Oh, Jesus. What are you doing down in Puerto Rico when you're down there? I mean, are you just you can manage everything from overseas?
Yeah, I mean, I still do this kind of stuff, podcasting and whatever. I get on Zoom and have meetings and I make phone calls. But I mean, I do a lot of I have a lot of time freedom. So a lot of it is just exploring the island, getting to know people, meeting people. I have a lot of people come visit me there. So and there's a lot of real estate meetups there. I even have I have some coaching that I do sometimes. Some of my coaching students will come and we'll do these weekend intensives where they can hang out with us, and kind of learn about the market in Puerto Rico, or just about, multifamily investing or whatever topic we happen to be working on. So, people can reach out about that if they want to, but I mean, I just hang out in Puerto Rico, man. I love it. It's a great place. I even started a Puerto Rican YouTube channel called Puerto Rico Life, where I just film myself walking around talking about how much I like Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I gotta go watch that. I want to see, because I'm curious more about Puerto Rico myself.
Well, come on down. You can.
Is it like Hawaii? I wonder if it's like Hawaii. I wonder if.
So it has similarities. In fairness, I've only ever been to Hawaii once for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
The similarities are it's an island surrounded by ocean, right? Like that's an obvious one. But also, you have mountains and rainforest and and desert areas. So I mean, there is a lot of geographical diversity in Puerto Rico. So there is that. And it's American dollar dominated and all that stuff. So there's a lot of similarities. Of course, there's a Spanish culture. Spanish is the native language there. There's a different colonial history that makes it's granted there's a colonial history in Hawaii too that we have to consider that, but it's a different colonial history, right? For different reasons. So there's similarities and differences.
That's cool.
But it's a cool place. It's a really cool place, and it's
bring my family down there.
Out.
Yeah, I'd love to bring the family and see.
Yeah, come on down. We'll hang out.
So, last part. How can everyone? How can the audience find you on social media? What's your social media and all the different handles to?
Oh, no, I wish I was more creative, but I'm literally at Jeffrey Holst everywhere. So JEFFREYHOLST. It's literally just my name. It doesn't matter if it's Twitter or TikTok or Be Real. It's everywhere. Instagram. I do a lot on Instagram. That's my main platform. I also have I have the two podcasts. So Last Life Ever, which is about the last life ever philosophy, and Old Fashioned Real Estate, which is where we drink old fashions, like the bourbon drink, and talk about real estate on YouTube. So you can check that out at oldfashionedrealestate.com or Old Fashioned Real Estate at YouTube. So
nice. Check them out, guys. Good stuff. No Bad Days. Guys, come like and follow and subscribe and all that great stuff. But definitely check out his book, No Bad Days. I want to read it myself because I'm a believer in it. Now I got to read about it and learn about it myself. So thank you, guys. Thank you for having Jeff on here. Super excited to just talk story. And, it was great. We had a full on script to follow, but that went out the window because we just talk story.
The best ones always do.
Yeah, it's just very intriguing to me, and that's what honestly, sometimes these podcasts are just my questions of what's intriguing to me.
That's
So
no, that's the best part about podcasting. The reason I do podcasting is so I can ask people questions that I want to know the answers to.
yeah, and I hope everyone else wants to know those answers too. So.
Yeah, but if they don't, at least I get my answer, right?
Yeah, okay. Yes. But thank you everyone for following and subscribing and like and comment and ask questions, and have no bad days, everybody. Aloha.